Ever since I've been younger, my mom's been suffering, and it was tough for me to see that, seeing her go down the path of having to take opioids, having to go to physical therapy all the time, spending a ton of money throughout that process. And it was difficult being on the sidelines. So we built our first prototype. It's been 2 years now, and we were able to help her not just move pain-free, but really take control of her life and run pain-free for the first time in a decade. So we thought maybe there's more people out there that we'd be able to help. And we realized that chronic pain and musculoskeletal problems as a whole are an epidemic, with 1 in 3 Americans, now closer to 1 in 2 Americans, are suffering from some sort of musculoskeletal problem on a day-to-day basis. And that's led to over 700 million outpatient visits annually just related to chronic pain as a whole. And the NIH did a report that this is causing the US healthcare system more than $635 billion annually. And to add insult to injury, 77% of these people are looking for some sort of non-invasive way to treat their musculoskeletal problems. And with current procedures, traditional pain management is failing. So 90% of people who are going to physical therapy currently to combat these problems aren't finishing their one-size-fits-all type treatment, whether it's too much time, it's not the treatment that they're looking for, it's too expensive because insurance only covers so much. Not to mention that 78% of all physical therapy patients' visits are related to musculoskeletal problems. On top of that, you have injections. I mean, you can only get an injection a couple times a year. If you get it more than that, it can lead to problems like neuropathy, dependence, and they're also very expensive, especially if you don't have insurance to cover it. And then finally, I'm sure everybody in the room has some sort of connection to either somebody they know with NSAIDs and opioids, which lead to kidney problems, long-term dependence, and 2.5 million people per year addicted with opioid use disorder. So there's a pretty significant unmet need here for an at-home or on-the-go tool that helps provide non-invasive, personalized musculoskeletal relief for the everyday person. And Lectra bridges this gap with a utility patent-pending combination of kinesiology tape and muscle stimulation in a personalized, non-invasive, and 24/7 experience. So the tape itself comes in a roll of 20 pieces, and each piece can be worn for 3 days. So you're getting 60 days of use out of one roll for $29. And the pod itself, we are excited that, number one, we have 84% margins now at scale, or 88% margins at scale. It charges via USB-C, and easily just magnetically snaps to the pod or the tape. There's no medical assistance required. It's as easy as putting the tape on, snapping the pod, you're ready to go. And then it has an option to be controlled by the phone as well. Our app literally sets everything up for you, from personalization settings to guidance on how to apply it, where to apply it to get the desired effect. The experience that we're trying to create is a comprehensive recovery and rehab for these individuals who are going through these different scenarios. And like I had mentioned before, we want to make this easy for people to implement into their routines, easy for people to go and get the relief that they're looking for. Because what currently exists is either, again, expensive, it's tough to apply, and even tougher to stay with it. So with our process, it's just as easy as unboxing the device, downloading the app, and setting up their preferences. And then from there, it's application, you're ready to rock and roll. And in terms of our go-to-market strategy, we've done over 120 customer interviews, and we've identified our beachhead market is the fitness enthusiast community in Greater Harrisburg, the Greater Philadelphia area. That's specifically where we've seen the highest population of musculoskeletal problems is pickleball, run clubs, and CrossFit specifically as well. So our implementation strategy is to launch into these communities in the Greater Philadelphia and Harrisburg area, as well as launching a crowdfunding campaign post our FDA 510K clearances to be able to really get a carve out our ICP and dive into these markets. So for phase 2, then our goal is to expand across the coast for consumers while opening up a B2B sales channel. So that's already partnerships that we've formed with clinics, professional and collegiate sports teams and players, along with opening smaller military events and fitness events across the coast as well, before national scale, partnering with distribution centers and military and healthcare partnerships as well. And our goal is just in 5 years to create a sizable reduction in individuals who are suffering from musculoskeletal problems from the currently invasive use traditional techniques that you guys saw in a couple slides before, to save consumers millions of dollars and help decrease this massive problem that's becoming an epidemic throughout the United States. And there is an absolutely massive opportunity in personalized relief. There's a $16 billion fitness enthusiast market. And we're confident that as we scale and execute our go-to-market strategy, as long as we're able to hit our key milestones, we'll be able to generate over 51 million in sales, with a lot of that coming from annual consumable revenue as well, which would be recurring. That would represent over 2.5% of the market. And that could be significantly bigger, whether we hit our milestones or we anticipate it could be around 22% to 25% less if we aren't able to hit these inflection points, which is still a large market. I mean, our users love why we're different too. So I'm sure most of you guys have heard of kinesiology tape and muscle stimulation separately. But the big thing here is the unique value proposition that Lectra adds. So number one is complementing the tape here where people can wear it for 24/7 experience. So for the first time, you're able to get that relief anywhere, on the go, at home, whenever you need it, wherever you need it. It's personalized MSK relief. So you're essentially bringing the physical therapist home. You could bring the trainer home. You could bring your masseuse home, whatever it would be. It's gauged perfectly for their scenarios. And don't just take my word for it. For example, one of our demoers, she's a physician's assistant. She had post-surgery on her knee and she was rehabbing and she was using Lectra and had a consistent shift and decrease in pain, that she was not using her opioids anymore. She was using Lectra on a day-to-day basis, which is a really cool study we had. And then if you guys look at the bottom, there's a professional fighter that liked it too. My co-founder and I bring years of experience between chemistry and electrical engineering with time spent at Pfizer and MITRE, and our robust team includes engineers and exited founders in the musculoskeletal space. They're helping us with product development, distribution, regulatory, everything that I'm not good at, which is awesome because we have a really great group of people, and not to mention a bunch of world-class PhDs helping us continue to push the science and get us forward to hit our goals and our inflection points. One of them being is this 510K clearance, which we're aiming for in October of next year. We also like to stay busy doing competitions. We got accepted into the Blue Origin's Space Accelerator program. I always say lecture to Mars because I was telling Dustin we want to be on the Mars mission. And then a bunch of different competitions across the United States over the last couple of years too, trying to win what we can. And this team gets things done. So we've formed partnerships with clinics, I'd say pro athletes, teams, manufacturers, making sure that we're able to hit a high operating margin, keep our cost of goods down. We're building an intellectual property portfolio. So we have a utility patent pending, fully executed in May. With international protection is the goal. So it's a PCT application. And believe it or not, this was our first prototype in 2022, but it looked like that up until July of 2024. So we have busted our butts making sure that we've gotten to this point, and we're really just getting started. So I appreciate you guys all taking the time to listen, and I'm looking forward to all the questions or just talking. What is up?
So I'm not familiar with kinesic tape. So is it like a pulse type thing that it's doing?
Yeah, well, the kinesiology tape in itself almost acts as like a fibrous exoskeleton to the skin. So it pulls off the epidermal layer of your skin a little bit, allowing for a decrease in inflammatories. So that helps kind of relieve pressure as well. And then the stimulation on top of that, it helps to reoxygenate the blood. So it helps create a quicker recovery by pulsing and moving in the blood in and out faster through whatever that would be. And then in terms of the pain relief aspect of it, it's considered like, it's called gate control theory. So it's blocking that pain signals up to the brain to help with relief. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that helps a lot. So are there specific things you're looking for that you could use help with that we would be able to, advise or anything else?
Yeah, I think for us is like optimizing our supply chain. It's like we manufacture in Taiwan, but my goal is to try and get everything or as much as possible stateside. So like I want to really make sure that our supply chain is solid so we can get the absolute highest margins as possible at scale. And like we have good hardware margins.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks.
That's sort of the tape, if you will, could be the recurring revenue stream for a power user, somebody who's using it for relief. Like you mentioned, a whole roll would last like maybe up to 60 days if they were wearing the tape for like 3 days each. But yeah, it'd be interesting, like because you have two separate parts. So I think it could make sense to have the actual electrical device be made in Taiwan. But yeah, if you could do that other part of the supply chain that's like the recurring, elsewhere. That could be interesting.
This is like a gray area for everybody. Like nobody's been able to do what we've been doing. So we're kind of just navigating the waters together.
And so the key difference with your tape versus the other tape is you have a conductive layer that's flexible, that's within the tape, that is providing the electric stimulus.
Yep, exactly. So with us, we call it like a dry electrode. So there's been dry electrodes that exist, but there's no dry electrode that exists that's able to do like muscle stimulation, because the biggest problem they've had before is like when you stretch it, it creates pockets and then it burns instead of like creates this therapeutic effect. And the other dry electrodes, they've used like electromyography, photoplethysmography, like different things, which like helps like collect data on the body, but nobody's been able to do it like this. So we just spent the last 4 years like we got a lot of tape.
So the full thing you can wear in the shower and that sort of thing.
I try to scrub it off. Like sometimes if I'm like really like digging at it, I'll pick up a side of it and it'll come off. Like, but I've swim laps in the pool. I've like, yeah. And I made sure like I have everything videoed too. It's like me swimming in the pool and then showering and then hitting with one piece of tape. I was able to do 4 workouts, like CrossFit workouts, swim laps, took 7 or 8 showers, still was ready to go. So it was pretty cool, but I want to make it better.
You touch base a little bit on this. You're saying that you already have access to be able to get the equipment and the processes to manufacture anywhere, based off of what your relationship with the current manufacturer.
Yeah, so we're doing a 3-phase design approach. So it's design validation, production automation. So we're finishing design validation right now. So we're finishing step 1 of the 3-step process. And then step 3 is like taking all of that automated process that we already created and then building the machines to do that. So does that answer your question?
Yes. I mean, I have tons of other questions. I would love to get your information. My background is manufacturing, so that fascinates me. What would be the footprint that the factory would actually need?
I mean, I anticipate that they said that we could probably do it in like a small warehouse. Like we wouldn't need like a whole factory to get everything done. And then my thought process was like we locally distribute out of wherever we end up setting up shop. I mean, right now my room's only so big, so it would have to be like a distributor out of like Philadelphia or wherever the company lands. My thing would be like we do MOQs of like 10,000 units, bring them into a local distributor to keep. Obviously, it would keep us at the highest margins. They have a 2-year shelf life for the hardware, the tape. So we would locally distribute, and as we sell product, it would just be distributed out of a, fulfillment.com is who we've been talking to so far.
Tell us a little more about your kind of go-to-market strategy. So I know you're building a social audience for a kind of direct-to-consumer or like a B2C. And then I know you've got a couple of key partnerships. You mentioned like pickleball and runners, but to me, I just feel like the sports influencers, like maybe they're not necessarily like a distributor or get a cut or something like that. But I know you're doing a whole bunch of things there. So do you really think it's going to be the local kind of like pickleball and running clubs that are going to be kind of your beachhead? Because I feel like you might have an ability to leverage kind of sports influencers and then kind of go direct to consumer.
Yeah. So what's nice about this is like we have some time to really carve out who our ICP is. And based off of the interviews we've been having, like this group of people are hurt all the time and they love telling people about it. So like what we've seen is like, yeah, there's a bunch of different plays we could do. We could go the influencer route. We could go like military route. We could go healthcare route. But like based off of like, I mean, we're talking to people every single day about this. And yes, this could be a massive product that we could promote through influencers on like TikTok Shop, which is blowing up. But then the problem is like, it doesn't make it like I want this to be a premium product, right? Like I want it to help people obviously, but I want it to be something that like you look at, it's like those Normatec HyperIce boots. Like I want it to be a platform company. I don't want it to be like a something that everybody gets for free, gets to promote, makes a video about, and then never talks about again. Like from the beginning is like, I have a deep-rooted connection to the reason why I'm doing this in the first place, and the only people I would want to associate are also people who would have a deep-rooted connection to why they would want to promote it. So like, as we would carve out that ICP, I mean, yeah, we would be open to specific influencers. Like, there's a dude fighting on UFC 310 next week. That's one of our athletes. Or not on Friday or Saturday. So like, it's stuff like that. But yeah, we're also looking to go like simultaneously. It's like, could we do the clinic partnerships with teams and as well. Like there's different plays that we can do. And until we start doing it, it's all just talk anyway, you know?
Yeah. Makes sense. So thanks for kind of adding some detail there. And anecdotally, I have heard that runners clubs, they like to talk about their injuries a lot, and their doctor says I shouldn't do this anymore. So
when you download the app, and I'm just kind of managing frequencies and things like that, strength and all of that. Can you explain the app a little bit? There's no subscription. I'm assuming it's free with the purchase. Yeah.
No, we're not doing that. So there would be no subscription on that. But you wouldn't have to control any frequencies, any duty cycles. Like the whole thing with like the personalization aspect for us is like taking that option out of people, not option, but like taking that hassle out of people's hands. Cause like with traditional OTC devices, like you have so many buttons and dials. Like if you buy one from Amazon, there's neuromodulation devices on Amazon. You get these devices and like my background is in this. I'm still looking at like, what is this? So the big thing for us is like, you can build out algorithms based off of like, what's like, I have lower sciatic, or I have sciatica problems in my lower back. Okay, great. What's your build? Boom, perfect. What's your activity level? Like, what's your pain level? So we'll be able to adjust this for people.
At scale, maybe you were thinking subscriptions were later or not at all.
So for our subscription for this is how it would work. Where I see this in the B2B play in phase 2 is like remote patient monitoring. So post-COVID, everybody does everything at home. Nobody likes to do anything in person. Like that's just what I've seen. So there's a ton of CPT codes and like reimbursement codes that we could connect with a physical therapist. They would buy a standard package and then send these devices home with these individuals who are then making money through reimbursements, potentially increasing patient adherence and compliance because they're able to televisit with them as then they go through and personally adjust the frequencies, duty cycles based off of what that person needs and gives them an exercise regimen as well. So that's where I see that going in. Same thing with sports teams. But for the consumer, man, we're like, well, if we do it right, we'll have a pretty good like lifetime value too.
No, that's very cool. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. I didn't think about the fact that your doctor, your physical therapist could also give it to you, which I think is a really interesting idea. So would you consider this more B2B right now or more like B2C? Like, do you have a in terms of a target market? I know you kind of already asked a question about that, but do you see kind of like your early days more focused on kind of B2B or kind of straight to consumer?
So we're going to do, I know people don't like when I say this, but we're going to do both simultaneously. And the reason is we're focusing on this niche group of fitness enthusiasts, and then it's small mom and pop PT offices that we're not going to introduce that model right now. It'll be the same type of consumer model, but within these clinics. So then they'll buy like 8 to 10 devices. They'll be able to use them on people. And then they'll probably anywhere between like 20 to 100 plus rolls per month. And I went into a couple PT offices, did some demos, and they were like, when can we buy this? So we've gotten really good feedback from them. And then we're just going to ride word of mouth to start and then start getting targeted advertising once we've carved the ICP out.
Yeah, I actually think it's really smart, to be honest, because if you go B2B, you kind of get to the consumer anyway, but you get to them through somebody who they already trust, which I think is a really beautiful model, especially to get this into more hands. I'm sorry, I'm hogging. So if anybody has a question, I just want to make one last comment, which is that I really like the pickleball market as your go-to-market, not just because they always are talking about it, but because they're always talking about pickleball in general. And I've found that like when you hang out with pickleball people, if you don't like pickleball, you don't really like them sometimes. But if you are a pickleball person, you are constantly trying to get better at pickleball. Whether you're like 80 or whether you're like 20, it's like you're so obsessed with getting better. So I could see how somebody being like, oh, this tape made me better at pickleball or helped me recover sooner could be a really interesting way for more people to just find out about you, to want to buy it, just to want to use it. Because they're like, oh, well, Drew over here just beat me in pickleball yesterday and he's wearing the tape right now. And so I'm going to go get the tape because I want to be Drew next time. And so I think that's a really cool kind of go-to-market that you're pursuing.
I wanted to ask a follow-up to something that he said, which was about those reimbursement codes. So you think there's existing reimbursement codes? You wouldn't have to get your own?
There's a ton already that we fall under.
That you would fall under? Okay, yeah, that's
it's
good.
It's anywhere between
like
$200-$225 a month per patient reimbursement, so we'd be able to file under.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense on the clinician side. That's really interesting.
When do you think you're going to actually have product that you could do this for the phase 1 launch?
Well, we anticipate clearances for the FDA between September, October of next year. Getting through that process and being able to start generating revenue then is when we anticipate it's going to be good to go.
Yeah, in terms of right now, have you raised money and then you're going to get the revenue, or are you some revenue already?
No, because what sucks about this is like you can't promote it, you can't take pre-orders, you can't sell it to anybody without FDA clearance. Yeah, so we've been pretty like heads down building. Like, I mean, it's hard to explain it like here meeting all you for the first time, but like literally it looked like this like 3 months ago. So it's just a really arduous process.
No, I believe you. I just wasn't sure if you were able to sell it to people at all yet. Okay.
I could, but I'd be in an orange jumpsuit
Yes.
pretty fast.
Gotcha.
To come back to something that you've alluded to, you said that you're unsure of where exactly the company will land in terms of like physical production within the U.S. You're thinking maybe closer to Philly. What is the decision-making process there specifically?
Wherever we can make the most money is where we'd land.
I guess in terms of production, like, you know, because production, you're talking about the costs of production, the cost of labor, being able to access the labor pool that can operate the machines, and shipping.
So for the pods, we're probably going to keep that design in Taiwan. For the tape, like we've been budgeting and trying to figure out how much it would cost. They said like the labor to run these warehouses and these machines keep them running. It's like, it's not too bad. Like it's very manageable, even with bringing it in the United States where the cost of manufacturing everything is higher. But it's something that we're looking into as we're getting closer to that process.
How much are you anticipating you're going to need to raise to go to market? Because I would have. Okay, so you already know. You already know $2 million. Okay, and are you raising locally? Is it competitions again? I mean, I'm assuming you're already in the meetings with VCs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But is there kind of like a plan in terms of the raise?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to close. Like, I wanted to close at the end of this year, but there's been pushback because there's like a lot of where the VCs turn away is like it's not that they don't like the product. It's just like it's pre-approved from the FDA. So people hear FDA and freak out, right? Like, and if you go to a sports tech fund, like the sports tech fund doesn't like that you have to go through the FDA. But if we're going through a health tech VC fund, they don't like that it's only a 510K. They want it to be more difficult of a process. I'm like, all right, so now we're like balancing in between this middle ground where I'll have a meeting with a VC and they'll be like, oh, well, just ask like an uncle or a friend. I'll be like, introduce me to your uncle or friend. Like, so that's kind of where we've kind of landed our feet. So we found some there, and then we just had a fund come on last week. So
very cool. Okay, so you have been able to raise some money, which is significant.
We're looking to close it's going to be looking like around $250,000 at the end of this year.
Okay, very cool. Okay, so that's not nothing at all. So yeah, that's great. What do you anticipate the plan will be, assuming you can't raise the $2 million? Because obviously, raising money is extremely hard. You're already finding it. Do you feel like not raising money will be something that really, really holds you back? Or do you have kind of like some of the motion if you had to go at it with $1 million instead of $2 million to be able to do that?
I mean, I've been running lean on this for so long. Like I've literally been living at home, not paying myself, trying to figure out the best process of going about this. So like, I'm gonna make it work with whatever amount of money we get. Like if we have $250,000, I'll make it work with $250,000. But like to be able to like be comfortable with where we're at from a positioning perspective, like $2 million would be ideal.
You have a big audience online. That could be something that is, which if you look him up anywhere, one of the things is LinkedIn proudly displays is 140 million views on YouTube. So, you know, he does have an audience there. You know, there could be something that you do with that where you set the terms and see what people come in at. You don't have to necessarily create something that's so sweet of a deal that you get, you know, a lot of small fund numbers.
Well, I mean, like right now, we're at kind of like a weird place where it's like I wouldn't say we're like desperate for cash anymore, because like we've gotten a lot of interest since we finished the product or finished the prototype and stuff. I don't know, this isn't my computer, is it? No, but like we're investing like through, it's like a syndicate, and we've had people who have come on to the syndicate And it just kind of seems like there's more and more people, and then there's more and more funds that have been trying to, like, a couple have contacted me, and it was like out of nowhere. Like, it was like all of a sudden you went from getting like no interest to now everybody's interested.
What's your smallest investment size?
We had the smallest we did was 5, but I'll tell you guys a story. So I reached out on LinkedIn to a bunch of investors and stuff. This was the very first email I ever sent. This guy responded back to me, and he was like, you know what? I think I'd actually like to have you come pitch to our group. It's called the Grandstand Angel Network in South Carolina. He was like, can you come tomorrow? I'm like, oh my God. So I got in my car and I drove down, and he introduced me to this other guy on the way down who's a doctor of physical therapist, or doctor of physical therapy, and he's like a world champion bodybuilder. And he was so in on it. He's like, I love this. I want to be a part of it. They're actually going to be where we do our first demo. He's like, I have a condo down in South Carolina. You don't need a hotel. You're good. Just meet us in Myrtle Beach. We got this. I was like, okay. So I'm down in South Carolina, 15 minutes away. I call him and I was like, hey, where's the condo? He's like, oh yeah, I booked it this weekend. Sorry. So I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? And he's like, oh, well, just, whatever. So I'm like, thanks, man. So we booked the random hotel. We had to walk 6 miles to get to where the pitch was. And we ended up pitching, and 6 months later, we ended up getting our first check from them. 2 guys put in $5,000. So I think the drive was worth it, but that was like for the first piece of money that we got that wasn't like competition funded or whatever. So now we've gotten a little bit more. We've just done a lot of driving. My car's hurting.
So with your current syndicated round, what investments are you accepting?
Well, we've won for 10, we've won for 25, we have won for 50 in that one. But like, we're trying to keep the minimum at, like, from now on is like 50 is the, like, what I want to try and keep it at.